Tommy, you can go to the Square Media Facebook page, and we're live now, or at least that is.
I got on Facebook for
One, two, three. You're going to count it down. Have you switched it? Oh, we're up. Awesome. There we go. Oh, go ahead and switch it back. All right, here we go. Hey, folks, we're back. I had a little glitch. Okay, it wasn't a glitch. I forgot to turn the lights on. I'm sorry.
technical difficulties.
Yeah. So, folks, anyway, thank you for joining the show. It's always a pleasure having you. You may have noticed there's some changes. We now have music. No, it's good, man. And some graphics at the beginning of the show, every show, which is great. So that's something that's fairly new. We've been working on that for 4 minutes. So now it's actually happening, and it's fantastic. tonight is not about. I mean, I love the music, but could we get the music down a little bit?
It's got a beat though.
It does. It does. Chief, music down. Yeah. So yeah. Tonight is all about this guy that's right over here, Timon Farley. Timon is he's been on the Deluxe Podcast Show,
Great time with those ladies.
and they thought that you would be good as a show host, and I said, why? So anyway, he is here, and we're going to introduce a show that is all yours.
I'm excited about it.
And but the thing of it, look, the gold and black microphones.
Don't act like it's not swag, Steve.
That's, dude.
If you don't have something to say, I don't know
Gold
if you could be in
and black
proximity.
microphones.
Black and yellow, black and yellow.
Anyway, yeah, we're talking about a brand new show, and we're going to have a guest appearance also tonight by Mandisa Thomas. She's going to be on the show. Do you know Mandisa?
I don't.
Okay. But she wanted to come on and just say congratulations on the new show.
Awesome.
I'm like, all right, cool.
exciting.
She's in Atlanta, actually.
Okay.
So the name of this show is, there it is, Frankly Speaking with Timon Farley. How do you like that, man?
I don't know if you guys can see camera-wise, but there's some significant amount of goosebumps. I'm excited. Yeah, I think the logo looks good. I don't know about this guy right here, but yeah, I'm excited about it. Excited about it.
So talk to me a little bit about what you're going to, I mean, what are you expecting out of the show?
A learning experience is probably the biggest thing. I think that in the last probably 3 years, a lot of change in my own personal life and everything like that, but I remember being at a sales conference and someone was talking about the why behind what you do things, and usually that ties to some kind of passion.
Right.
And for me, I love stories. Ever since I was a little kid, we didn't have television in my house, probably till I was in 10th grade.
Really?
Yeah.
That was on purpose?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was homeschooled till 6th grade, so I read everything.
Right.
The amount of good books that have been ruined by the movie, for me, was pretty significant. But
do you have a good example for that?
I remember watching Last of the Mohicans.
Oh, yeah.
For the first time,
Yeah.
and thinking, he doesn't look like that.
Right.
And then it hits me, how do I know what he looks like? Because the beauty of literature to me is
Right.
theater of the mind stuff,
imagination,
right?
right. Mm-hmm.
So in kind of keeping with that, the mind, a big part of Frankly Speaking is aimed at why we think what we think.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I meant by a learning experience, because this aspect of saying there's so much nuance that goes into the human experience that's going to be specific to different people.
Right,
And they're
right,
going to
right.
come from walks of life. They're going to come from political leanings. They're going to come from spiritual belief systems
Sure.
that I don't necessarily know about,
Right.
agree with, subscribe to, whatever else. So the point of Frankly Speaking is to have some conversations with people, either where we're looking at a specific topic and how you might come at it, or just talking about someone else's experience who's going to come on as a guest who looks at things from a completely different worldview than I may.
Right. Right.
And want to bring some humility to that,
Right.
but also ask some pointed questions, to get that understanding.
So let me ask you this, man. How
Hit me.
were you? The idea of having your own podcast show, was this an idea of yours that you had early on, or what?
We used to listen to radio shows when I was little, and I don't know that people listen to the radio the same way outside of, like, say, satellite.
Yeah.
Right. And so this new wave of podcasting, and specifically a format like this, where it's almost more visual than it is just
Oh, for sure.
pure audio,
Yeah.
right? So it was an idea that, candidly, I bought some equipment, was going to do the duct tape and bubble gum,
Right.
slap it together out of the basement. Y'all come to my house and talk about some stuff. Don't act weird.
Right.
Can't break nothing in here. and then running into the ladies from Deluxe, and then kind of the progression there to be in front of a gold mic right now.
Right.
It's crazy how things have come to fruition, but it's probably been an idea that's been batted around for a while. Probably the last year, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you never thought really that you would be doing or adding the video piece.
No, which is just something with a logo that it's this visual. Right? I mean, obviously you hear the sound of the voice, but it is a big part of the chill bumps, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's exciting. So,
Well, I'll say this. I think for me, when in developing this network, I never for once thought about audio only. I'm like, because people are way too visual.
sure.
We need to see what that person sounds like. I mean, what that person looks like. We can hear them. They sound great. What do they look like? Does that voice match up? And many times the voice does not match up with the face.
Sure.
Many times.
Which is funny when that happens, too.
Oh my goodness.
Ooh.
Oh yeah. Good and bad. Okay, I'm sorry. Good and not so good.
Faces for radio.
That too. But dude, I got to tell you, I'm glad all of this worked out. I think that this could be really good for all of the viewers. I think it'd be great for you. Before this show, Brandon had his show, and that was really his second show. And of course, he wanted to know how he did. And as I tell everybody, you get better with every single show. You get better kind of based on the guests that you have on your show.
Yeah.
If you have guests that are not challenging to you, then you're not going to grow. And based on what you and I have already talked about in terms of the guests that you've already spoken with, you're going to grow pretty damn quickly.
Exponentially.
Yeah.
It's I'm about to start taking yoga classes for the stretching that's going to happen here.
Well, yeah.
Which is be the goal.
You also
would be the
mentioned about having, what'd you say, a black hat and a white hat or something like that? You going to do that?
I love to do that.
Yeah.
I think that there's some of the things that will get talked about on here where, based on either where we are as a country on certain issues,
Right.
that it feels like that. It feels like to champion one side of an issue means that you're coming at, even attacking.
Right.
I don't personally think that should necessarily be the case.
Right.
But to your point about this being a visual as well as audio experience,
Yeah.
I'd love to have the dynamic in the comment section where you have people understanding, like, hey, I'm identifying a little bit maybe with the white hat section tonight. Or,
Right.
Black hat's really, ahead on the card right now as we, go through whatever is going to be talked about. I don't think that that's going to be apropos for every topic.
No.
Just when you and I were batting around names for the show, right?
Right.
We had a couple that were a little bit more incendiary when we talk about. I don't necessarily want everybody coming in to sit on the other gold mic with they put their mouthpiece in and limber up with a couple rolling
Right,
shoulders for
right,
a jab.
right,
You know what I'm saying?
exactly,
They
yeah.
ain't too combat ready, but I think when we say frankly speaking, we're usually about to deliver something that's direct and can be in a variety of spaces with that. So,
I totally agree with that. So, give me some ideas of topics that you may be talking about.
well, I've got one of my first couple guests is going to be a gentleman who is an atheist. And for background,
A for real atheist.
he's the most peaceful, most certain guy that I've ever run into who holds that viewpoint.
Okay.
His name's Paul, incredibly articulate, brilliant business mind. I use the comparison I was literally talking to him before he came in. I had a recruiter that reported to me, shout out Matt Wilson if you're watching, who was 7 foot tall.
Right.
And when he came in to ask me about some business aspect of what we were working on, I was like, you know what, maybe let's go ahead and sit in a chair, Matt, because
You
I
need to
feel-
sit down.
Yeah. And Paul's kind of got that intellectual poundage on me, and I
Right.
really am excited for talking to him. There's a couple other folks that come from a sexual orientation that I don't come from,
Right.
that I want to have on, and people that also have leftist, liberal, more so than me
You know, I will say this:
viewpoints. So-
every one of your conversations so far, I've not heard you say that you didn't agree with. That's good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some things that I think that we'll get into, right? But I think if I'm going to go into a conversation with somebody that I anticipate, I don't want to anticipate, you know, a bad referee anticipates the call,
Right.
They're, and I think this is going to happen, and maybe you blow the whistle prematurely.
Right.
Given the fact that there's been so many things that have changed in how I view the world on a lot of different levels,
Right.
I think there's some things that I'll be much more ironclad about, and then there's other things that I hope that the lack of knowledge of where you come from is presented in a way that's direct and hard hitting, maybe in a way, but also with large doses of humility and the awareness that you know, everybody doesn't come from the same place.
Right.
And I hope that there's a viewership that can appreciate nuance to things that they might disagree with. So like,
Yeah.
you know what? You know, I don't think anybody's going to change their mind. I don't have an evangelistic leaning with this aspect, right? I'm not trying to, Steve, come to my side of the ravine.
Yeah.
I want to hear what you got to say, and hopefully you hear what I have to say, and then in the presentation of those ideas, then that's a water cooler conversation starter for someone who may have watched, and hey, pull up this clip. I want to, you know, Steve and Ty were talking about this, and kind of go from there.
Do you think you'll go into any of your conversations much like a gladiator?
Go in there hot? Oh yeah. I mean, because I'm picking the guest, right? So somebody's gonna get set up. No, I'm just teasing. But, you know, we talking about, are you not entertained?
Right.
Is this not why you were here?
Hello.
You know, we're here to talk about some things, and I think there's an element of being very upfront with the people that I'm asking to be on the show,
Right.
Because we do live in a time period where the presentation of ideas isn't necessarily without, I'm not going to say consequence, but you do know what I'm saying, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I want it to be welcoming enough that you can come and present your ideas, and I hope some people get in the ring about it. I hope there is a gladiatorial element. I hope there's some, you know, not everybody has to come on here and be my buddy. I'm really hoping for a couple of those that are just like, let's get somebody on here who's like, you know what, I've been wanting to tell you some stuff. Maybe we get 2 or 3 shows in, they grab that hat right off the table. They know exactly where they're standing.
Wow.
We can talk about
Okay.
it. So
That'll be interesting.
yeah, this is just, you know, this is the idea. You mentioned your vision for Square Media, and,
Right.
and a microcosm of what I'm hoping to get out of doing this, and it's kind of where, if you know,
You know,
I'm
so let me,
excited
and I'll say this too, man. The just the name of the show, frankly speaking. Of course, we typically say that when you're at the end of a conversation with somebody, or you're done talking, or you want to kind
Diplomacy
of
is now
change.
dead.
Right. Frankly speaking, you know, you can kiss my ass.
Right.
You know, or whatever it is you want to say. So,
It's usually in those lines,
yeah.
though, right?
If your mama's watching, I'm very sorry about that.
Yeah.
But because this is a grown folks show.
Yep. Yeah.
But
Don't bring your kids.
I think that I think you're going to bring on and bring up conversations that are going to be very stimulating. I think that just the short time that I've known you, and the conversations that we've had, even the ones you've had with the girls with Deluxe,
Yeah.
that caused me to say, I like that. I get bored pretty damn easy. Just being honest. And so,
Small attention window.
yeah. Buddy of mine will tell you, his name is Rick. He's up in Raleigh, and I could be talking with a client. They'll start going off on a tangent, and I'll tell them in a second, look, stop.
You're losing me.
You have no idea what the fuck you're talking about, or whatever it is,
Right,
you know.
yeah.
So again, my attention span sometimes is short. My I can't say my temper, but I just don't have time to BS people, or even be BS'd. So in terms of you and your show, I think you're going to bring a flavor to it, man, that we don't have. That's not here. that's needed. That's all those things. And and based on what I've seen, listen, you have fantastic support from friends and family and whatever else. And I think that's going to be evident in some of the comments that people leave on the what's the damn thing called?
The comment section.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
The new technology.
Yeah. But no, man, I think in general you're going to do. I think you're going to do very, very well.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the big blessings. I didn't really do like a New Year's resolution thing, but I kind of had this mental approach of saying, hey, and my brother Nathan's been a big part of this, of looking at what is good in your life, to actively search those things out and stare at them.
Yeah.
Right. To really say, everybody's got their own stuff. Everybody's got, some stuff going on. And a big part of what has been a good part of my life is I've got people that are push buttons from different, acquaintances, relationships, people that have been there for me, have accepted the fact that sometimes my mind's a bad neighborhood, and help grow that. So I'm excited about the fact that I think everything kind of leads you to the point where you're at.
Right.
And having some of that, being open to some stuff that, I might have been, put my hands over my ears and la 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 because I don't want to hear it.
La 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 la.
And then now, you get to have a show where you're actually, chasing.
You get
that
to
element.
do your thing. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring on my friend Mandisa, and oops.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
Mandisa, hey, I want to try to get this over. We're in the show. Timon is, I don't know if you can see him.
Hey,
Mandisa, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
It is nice to meet you.
So,
Yes.
she just wanted to say, hey, congratulations and everything on the show.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
So, Mandisa, what is your title?
I am the founder and president of Black Non-Believers, which is based here in Atlanta, Georgia.
So she's atheist too.
Oh, no, I believe.
Yeah.
Now she's been a guest.
Yeah.
Is this the show I was talking
Yeah.
about? The atheist pansexual was.
Yep,
I don't
yep.
want to
We talked about
say it
all
wrong, but
Hey.
okay. Oh,
Yeah.
I listened to all of that one. That was
Okay. Must have been good.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me bring this up full screen here.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. So I just wanted to bring Mandisa on, man, so that, listen, I love the conversations that she and I had when she was here. It's funny when you first sat down and you talked about one of your first guests is going to be an atheist. I'm like, well, how weird is that?
Yeah.
So, and then,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not like Mandisa and I were talking when she was here. It's not like atheists are really not accepted in many circles. And she's the president of the Black Non-Believers. President, right? Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I just wanted you to connect and have a conversation at some point. But again, she just wanted to say, hey, congratulations.
Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate the welcome here. I'm excited about that, obviously, and I'm candidly, Mandisa, I'm fighting it right now. I want to ask questions. I want to know from your standpoint. I'm coming from I grew up in a Christian home, and I grew up with my parents. When it came to things of belief, like there was no tooth fairy, there was no Santa Claus. They didn't want us to, I know, come into a situation where if they're going to tell us something else later in life that was belief related, then it was like, well, you told us about Santa Claus and we could believe in them too, and now that it's not, right? So for me, there was been a recent dynamic for me of like, well, why do I think what I think? And then reading reading the Bible in a way where I'm reading it like a book, where if you start a verse from the Bible right now, I can probably finish a lot of it, right? Like, grew up with the scripture memorization, and I think that there's always aspects for me that's curious about. It hit me, I have an incredible father, But there's somebody who attributes the same level of moral upstandingness to their father, who's faithful to their mother, who's a provider to their family, who's honest, who's decent, who blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Who doesn't call Jesus God. And it hit me that I don't even consider Allah to be real. I don't, you know what I'm saying? It's not even as if I say it's the Tupperware container of stuff I don't believe is real. You in there.
Right.
So then you have a conversation with somebody who is as utterly convinced that my belief system fits their Tupperware container in a similar fashion, right? And for some reason, I think one of the big things about the show is it pokes things in me to say with some humility, well, where am I certain and why so?
Right. Yeah.
And if the fruits of the spirit of love, joy, peace, patience, and you see those things manifest in someone else's life,
yeah.
Where'd you get that from?
Right.
Because you didn't go to the same store I did.
Exactly.
And then how does that factor in? Right?
Yeah.
Is it just that truth is truth? You know, doesn't respect basically what book you read? Or is there, you know, so from your standpoint, I'm trying to scramble here and remember on the show what was your background, but how you arrived at that position of saying, yep, don't really buy that there's a greater being, whether you're a deist and it's the clockmaker kind of view, or it's an active hand of God moving the pieces on the board. So
so thank you once again for inviting me as a guest, Steve. This is great. And I'm sorry, your name one more time.
It's Timon. So
Timon.
it's spelled like the Lion King. Don't let it fool you. If you got any Akuma Matata jokes, you can go ahead and get them out your system now.
No, I don't have any.
Okay.
But yes, so to give you a bit of background on myself, I wasn't formally raised religious. I'm a native of New York City.
Okay.
And, you know, I'm still considered an anomaly within the Black community.
Sure.
Because, you know, we hold on to religion so tight, especially Christianity. And so my parents decided that was not going to be the school of, that wasn't going to be the philosophy that they were going to raise me and my brothers in, which was religion.
Right.
So I read a lot as a kid. We were always in the library. And so one thing I found is that there are multiple sources of knowledge. There's multiple sources of information that we can glean from in life. Now, some of that may come from these religious texts. However, they may be considered allegory or something that you can take as life lessons, even though there are some things in the Bible that I contend to be horrific and that I wouldn't take as life lessons at all.
Okay.
So, you know, I just basically in my adulthood, I realized that I didn't believe in any God, spirits, or supernatural beings. And again, that's just because none of them have any basis in evidence. Okay. And we have to attribute, you know, all of our education, all of the information that we learn outside of, you know, our institutions, and also the ability to critically think. And it sounds like your parents have given you that foundation to, you know, to glean certain things on your own. Sure. And it's important for us to be able to do that, to instill that quality in our children, to be able to question the things that they learn without repercussion and without making them feel that, you know, something bad will happen to them simply because they have these questions. And also, because for many people, they still believe out of fear. They refuse to, and then our tradition is such a huge thing in our community, which is something that I think we should always reassess and reconsider.
Sure.
And so I unapologetically identify as atheist, because there does need to be a destigmatization around the word, because ultimately it really isn't scary unless you are afraid of learning new information.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to identify as such, simply because I do. The only thing that we encourage people to do is to look beyond what they've been taught, to consider new information, because like you said, when it comes to the tooth fairy, when it comes to Santa Claus and other mythical beings, after a while you grow up and you learn that they don't exist. Yeah. And I contend that many parents may have instilled these belief systems because they thought it was the best thing that they were doing for their children at the time.
Of course.
And also it's because of the tradition of what they believed, and unfortunately that they've been conditioned to think that that's the only thing that they should believe.
Right.
And unfortunately that tends to pass down.
Sure.
I cannot say that it was intentional or intentionally malicious. However, it is important for us to always reconsider the information, where it's coming from, and also not to be afraid of new information and also new perspectives.
Sure.
Because, it's really going to be important to realize that we live different lives and we have different existences, especially within our own community. We aren't a monolith, and it's important for us to have these conversations where we are deconstructing a lot of tradition and a lot of these schools of thought that honestly I contend are hindering progress.
Sure. The one thing for me that I remember recently in trying to, unpack some of the whole where I stand about a lot of things was I'm a big, no pun intended, believer in this dynamic of the nature of man, right? That there's some things that are going to be indigenous to the human condition, that doesn't matter where you're from necessarily, doesn't matter where you grew up. And I find it interesting, and I remember I was doing a little bit of research on it, so if I can be fact check on this and it turns out to be I'm incorrect, somebody go ahead and put it in the comments. But I don't know that there's any atheist societies in the history of mankind, right? We all, whether they believe in Thor and Norse mythology, or they believe in, the Greek traditions or whatever else, that there's not a society that doesn't, as a group, as a larger civilization, hold the premise that there's no spiritual element to the world in which we live. There's always atheists within those groups, right? That reject that belief system, whatever else. But as a group, so for me, the nature of man is that, okay, so if there's something that's innate to us as a race of beings, humanity, to want to worship something. I remember thinking, like, there's a lot of things that are explained by science. Like, if I'm a goat herder on the plains of former Russia, and the Mongolian horde is bearing down on me or whatever else, or I'm trying to get my crops to grow or whatever the case is, I don't have Doppler 9 radar telling me what thunder is, right? It's got to be explained somehow, right? So for me, it's like, well, if that's a common thread that runs through all of us, where does that come from? Mm-hmm. What sparks all of us to act that way? And so for me, that became the big thing. So to your point, you were mentioning that you didn't grow up with your parents actively channeling that aspect of your development in a specific direction, right?
Correct.
So there's part of me that wonders, would I have arrived at the same place, maybe by a more circuitous route, that I am today if I hadn't been raised by people that, the other thing too for me that I recognize is, like, there's a level of, not to say my parents are perfect, right? They made mistakes and whatever else, but there was a synchronicity of how they raised us. That's the common thread that's had a big benefit in our life.
Sure.
Under duress.
Sure. Yeah.
7 kids. My dad's white. My mom's black. My dad's disowned by his father for his choice on who he marries. All kind of different stuff that you would say, okay, what's holding this thing together, right? And I think we all make choices. To your say, hey, I went through the knowledge search, and the evidence that I uncovered pointed me this way, and because of that, because I did the work. It sounds like you did the work for you. You didn't just accept it on face value, that you arrived at the decision you arrived at. And my question has been, and would be on on frankly speaking, how is it that it's such an internal war for me and a place of peace for you? Right? Does that make sense? Like,
it makes a lot of sense.
How is that possible? Why am I at conflict to the point of saying, I do fear the other shoe dropping? And what's another nuance to that is, why don't I fear Allah smacking me for something that I did, but I do feel that the God of the Bible has a way of seeing my actions.
Right.
Someone's like, ooh, Buddha does not really appreciate how you were to that old lady in traffic. Well, Buddha ain't real, so he can't get me.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
But I don't feel that way. I'm like, well, God, I'm sorry. I really was out of line.
But that's what you grew up with.
Well, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So my point is like, is all indoctrination, and I don't mean indoctrination in the way of brainwashing,
No,
but
no,
it
no.
is that, right?
Right.
It is
Partially,
that,
partially.
Right? America's the greatest country in the world. Now, we can go on a whole nother diatribe about that, but there's a level of, well, you grew up here.
Yeah.
When I was in Italy, I was like, Italy ain't bad.
No, it's not.
They got some things that I like better.
Mm-hmm.
Some things I don't. They didn't have Bojangles. They didn't have ranch dressing.
Which is
can't
good.
rock with it. You know. So I think that's probably my biggest level of curiosity is, you know, I saw somebody sent me a sticker on Instagram that was like, we live a lot of our life in our mind. So make it a good place.
Yeah.
Make it a nice place
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah.
And when I see somebody who's like, you're so on the other end of the belief spectrum for me, and you don't have three heads, you know what I'm saying? Like there's some element of like, well, she's that you don't have, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
recognizing those things.
Yeah.
So was it ever a wrestling point for you where it felt like it's more than like, it wasn't just, well, I've got this piece of evidence and this and this and this, and therefore my case, I believe, is solid from that standpoint, therefore I move forward? Or was ever like other influences that may have made you say, yeah, I kind of feel this way, but I can't really put all my weight on it just yet? Was that a progression?
So yes, there's a number of questions that I'm going to try to wrap in.
I threw a lot at you there. I got a gold mic right now. It makes me feel powerful. I'm sorry.
But yeah, so first, let me just say that as an atheist, I am not afraid to say I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as human beings, and we talked about human beings, human will, basically the sheer human, condition and our will. I don't speak in absolute terms,
Okay.
because if someone could show me concrete evidence of deity's existence, I would take it into consideration.
Sure.
It doesn't necessarily mean I would wholeheartedly believe in it.
Right.
But I would consider.
You got to acknowledge, yeah.
Yeah, and I would say, going back to your point about atheistic societies, I do, now I have to double check this myself, but there were some, I think some even ancient African societies that were pretty atheistic.
Okay.
And we have to consider also, back then in the times, that there was a lot of information that we have now that wasn't available
Sure.
years ago. And so for those people who did that practical work, that was a matter of skill.
Mm.
That was a matter of them being able to do what they needed to do by the practice of what tools they have available or what tools they developed.
Sure.
And also being able to utilize, their skills, and also because you have to remember that there were institutions of learning
Right.
as well, but yes.
That developed
for-
as time allowed
Correct.
things to progress, right?
And there were some religions, like, let's say, for example, I read a lot of African mythology.
Okay.
There
Right.
were a lot of creation stories just based out of sheer folklore,
Mm.
but also there were some things made up, or some belief systems created because there wasn't the information available at the time, but that we know is available now.
And if you don't mind me, I don't mean to cut you off.
Sure.
But I wanted to hit on it while we're kind of got it. That was the thing when you start breaking it down, almost like a drop down box thing, right? When it says that, like, when you're saying that there was aspects of them doing the work with what they had available. The thing that was interesting to me is like, okay, let's say I am that African, quote unquote, ancient civilization that's working through whatever else. What about them goes to say, I hear thunder.
Right.
What makes me think that that's a god?
Fear.
Right. Well, but does that make any sense? Like, where I'm saying, what makes my mind? Because at that
Right.
point, I don't have knowledge of other civilizations, right? I
Right.
don't know the folklore of somewhere else, or when someone, even if you played the little telephone cup game when you're little, somebody had to start the first story.
Sure.
Why is the first story that there's a greater being? Does that make
Right.
sense?
Because it sounds bigger than you.
Yeah, but I'm
Yes,
saying, like,
it is.
we
Yeah,
don't. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the desire to explain the world around us by something
Yeah.
being bigger is kind of like the thing for
human
me.
imagination is quite
crazy.
Yes.
It can be
It is,
vivid.
yeah.
It can go to bizarre.
Yeah.
Right.
It never ceases to amaze me what human beings can come up with to justify certain things.
Right. Right. Yeah, you're right.
And really,
Well, that gets sticky right there real quick.
That gods are a man-made concept or a human concept because that's what they are. So, it's just interesting to try to, analyze that.
Yeah,
What people may have
absolutely.
thought, what traditions they may have passed down, and especially with with the African tradition, it's usually oral. It's usually through storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And so you know how that happens. Stories can get convoluted.
That's right.
That's like you said, the telephone game. What is that?
Right.
What is that game where you pass on the information and the next thing you know, once it's passed on to so many people,
It's not even the same story.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, it's and it isn't just that we're the only ones or our ancestors are the only ones that have done it. However, it is just interesting. We could spend our entire lives learning about like ancient civilizations.
Oh yeah.
As well as ancient either belief systems and other cultural systems. And we find that there's so many, and I think that's the beauty of this life is that, especially when you travel and go different places.
Right.
You go and see different things. You go and see that the world, even though there's a lot of danger in it, it isn't as scary as we've been made to think.
Right.
But it takes, it really does take getting over any fear or apprehension and just doing it.
Sure.
That's true.
And that's how you expand your mind. That's how you expand your worldview. That's how we are. And I would say that, because my foundation was one where, again, my mother did not just depend on the public school system to educate me and my brothers. And I actually had the opportunity to visit Ghana as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
So that did help to shape my worldview, even at an early age. And so I think that, where our journeys are, our upbringing, and also our perspectives, we may come to different places at different times, but that's okay.
Sure.
Because that is a part of our development, which should honestly always be ongoing.
Right. So when it comes to, like, we're talking about upbringing, right? And I don't know what your background is from a family standpoint, if you have children or not.
Yes, I have 3.
Okay. Well, then good. We can just talk about that directly. When it comes to my mom used to tell me God doesn't have any grandchildren, meaning that, just because she is a child of God, born again, blah, 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 don't mean just because, she gave me life that I'm automatically in the club either, right? So for when it comes to your own direction, being a mother, raising your children, there's an element of morality that we're trying to instill, right? If your child was to say, Mom, I believe that, so that this is, I've come to a belief in God, in or whatever else. Does that feel like, are you as equally accepting of their standpoint there, or do you feel that there's a part of you that's like recognizing that it's your choice, but I know if I was to convert to another religion, that there would be the feeling, at least in my parents, that I was making a choice that was incorrect.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So here's the thing. I have my oldest daughter. My oldest child is 21.
Okay.
My boys are 13 and 10.
Okay.
Now, my daughter does identify as atheist, but not because I told her to, not because we made her. Our children have the ability to think on their own and make that decision if they want to. Would I be disappointed? Sure, but it's not my life.
Sure. Okay.
That would be where we're actually. The one thing I love about being an atheist and being a parent is that we have been able to redefine what it is to instill a sense of morality in our children. Mm-hmm. And so I have honest conversations with my kids. I've had honest conversations with them about sex, sexuality. We watch different stories. I think I might have told you, Steve, before, someone else. My kids and I watch South Park.
Right.
My boys watch Rick and Morty. So they watch other things that would be considered age inappropriate but they get a better understanding of what the world is,
Sure.
and they are comfortable talking to us about it.
Right.
And we're able to, say things to them. And we still watch other cartoons, by the way. We're really, really, very unorthodox household, which is kind of fun.
Right.
But, the thing is to instill in them to be good for the sake of being good. And this is where I also identify as a humanist.
Sure.
We have a system that, that is not oriented in divine intervention or belief in God, but for the sake of doing good as human beings,
Right.
which does not require belief in a God to do that.
Gotcha.
So,
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Because I kind of came to a point where I've come to understanding that, I'll just say it. Outside of what I believe about my soul and what follows life on this earth, I don't know that I need a religious something to make me be moral. Right. If we're going to acknowledge the fact that there is because if I'm faithful to my wife as a Christian, you're faithful to your spouse as an atheist or Muslim or whatever else. Well, who's more faithful?
Right.
My analogy was like, you go to a grocery store. I don't know how you guys grew up, but you go to that cereal aisle, right?
Oh yeah.
There's, what is it, General Mills?
Yeah, Jim. Mm-hmm.
Tony the Tiger cornflakes. Sure. Those are the real cornflakes. And then you got the little, Harris Teeter brand down here, right? Well, if you took the packaging off and it's just the cellophane wrapped bags, it looks like Frosted Flakes, which is how I started to feel about morality. Like I've assumed, well, you're not really as peaceful because you might have some level of it. Right? You still got cornflakes, but it's still is not really Tony the Tiger. Right. They're great ones, right? Yeah. The issue for me started being like, okay, well then what am I embracing? Because I think you mentioned like, well, I don't really believe that there's a higher being out there, so I'm just kind of progressing my life kind of on my own terms. For me, there was a feeling, especially in the last year, just from a transparency, it's like if that would be the case, then I would feel a level of not being lost as in the sense of like can't find my way, but then it felt like whatever I braced my life against kind of felt like a bite of cotton candy now, right? You go take a big chomp at, I think, and then you never really bite cotton candy. Right. It just disappears, right? Yeah. So when you come to like, say, child rearing or interacting with your significant other, do you find that there's some level of difficulty in terms of saying, if we're just two people that are basing our subjective views of morality against each other and trying to come to agreement, is there something to be said for subscribing to a system of belief to give yourself a level of unity? Do you ever feel that for your own personal situations or see how that might bear out in other people's life? Because I look at my parents and I'm saying like, well, how do y'all do this? Right. You have 7 children, which means we're all completely different personalities. Yeah. But there's a synchronicity in which we've been raised, right? That comes from mom and dad say the same thing. If you heard it once, you heard it 1,000 times. I don't know that I'm going to be in that same space. Me and Steve ain't always going to say the same thing. Me and you are not going to always say the same thing. But if we're subscribing to a, quote, higher dynamic that supersedes what I just think, what you just think in terms of the way, how do you feel that doesn't play, I guess, in your same situation?
Well, with every parental unit, their communication is always going to be important. Yeah. And I find that usually which can be difficult. And I think it's important to acknowledge that like you said, we're not always going to be on the same page. It will take a lot of people putting their egos and emotions to the side for the sake of the unit and how we are going to, raise our children as well as communicate with each other. And every parental unit is different. Every relationship is different. Sure. And going back to what you said about, the sense of morality and ethics, certainly, there are different, and I also said on Steve's show that I am an advocate for polyamory, even in marriages. I don't, I don't think that monogamy is realistic for everyone. Not saying that is the case for everybody, but I advocate for open sexuality, open sexual identification, and that liberation and expression. So for me, being able to get over those stigmas, because it can be very uncomfortable, again, to reassess what you've been taught to believe. And going back to what you said about every one of us has been indoctrinated, like you said, not brainwashed, because even though I wasn't raised religious, I certainly was indoctrinated.
Right.
And so
Okay.
I had to come to a point where I had to reassess what I was taught, and realize that perhaps some of those things that I was raised to think weren't necessarily the best ideals for my life, and I didn't want to pass those on to my children. And it's a process, especially for those of us who are overcoming some trauma. And I think that's also a part of it. There are some people who hold on to their beliefs because they are dealing with trauma in their lives
Okay.
that they may not have
That's for sure.
necessarily received
Yeah.
clinical help for.
Everybody
Yep.
prays when the
And,
plane's going down.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So
And
tell me, and forgive me.
Last question.
I'm such a jumper in.
Last question.
Yeah,
Last
I know,
question.
We've been on
Okay.
this call for a while. It's
I know.
very
This, I thought it was going to be like 10 minutes, man.
Well-
Mandisa.
You shouldn't have given us gold microphones then, Steve. We'll talk about some stuff. When it comes to the dynamic of saying, almost like open borders for your own personal exploration, for lack of a better term, right? Whether that's sexuality, whether that's religious, whatever else. Do you feel that that kind of my truth, almost in the ultimate sense, right? Redefining relationships, redefining what I think about religious existence, etc., like that. Do you feel that that's something that's much more easier confined to the individual but tough for the group? Right?
It doesn't have to be, because the one thing that I've said about my position is that, it's about making informed decisions.
Okay.
That you realize that if you are taking a certain route, that you are informed about it, and that, that there could be consequences that may or may not happen. I'm not saying that they will,
That's
but,
all I want.
and this is just a general sense.
Right.
But you do take that chance, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
And, there is a fear of failure. I think that so
Sure.
many people do, that they have. And I think, with the religious, background, is that the fear of failure is so great that, it really hinders people from taking the steps that they need to. For some people, it gives them strength, and that's totally
Right.
fine as well.
Right.
So we have to acknowledge that part. But for those of us who do not have that belief in that higher being or spirit or what have you, it really does lend to our inner strength, but also seeing the actions and the work of people around us.
Mhm.
So that means that we can work together as a team, we can work together as a unit. Like you said, doesn't mean that we always will agree on everything, but that communication is always going to be important. And that sometimes that means knowing when to say things, when not to say them, having that accountability as well. That's
Okay.
what it's about. It is about accountability, knowing that, meaning that if I do it, it's up to me. And if I mess up, then I am responsible for it.
Right.
And if I do well, then I can give myself the credit as well as the people who helped. It's about putting things in the perspective of where they belong for us, for those people who we can actually not just see, but also the methods that we apply.
Sure.
So
I
there's
love that
there's a
personal
lot in
accountability
there. There's
aspect.
so much in that, and it can get complicated. It can be confusing.
Right.
It can be upsetting, but also rewarding. And I think that's also a part of what we do as human beings. Some may attribute it more to their higher being, a higher power, but really I think the more people give credit to themselves and look to themselves for the answers, then that can help with that belief process as well, especially for those who are questioning that it is okay to question these beliefs. And it is okay for you to come to a decision that, because I can't, you can say conclusion, but the information and the knowledge is ongoing, but you can make a decision that works for you, that works for your family, and damn whoever else may have a problem with it.
Right.
Well, and this
What?
That's why I get hyped, people. because the thing for me is like there's so much stuff that I'm trying to be conscious of what tugs in me when I hear something, right?
Yeah.
Am I listening to what you got to say? So I'm going to come back with my own next question or whatever else. Or am I listening to what you have to say, right? And the thing for me is like everything in me leaps at the wanting to acknowledge that we have that capability as human beings. But then I've also read The Bottle of Bleach. If swallowed, who's walking around swallowing bleach? I don't believe that humanity necessarily is walking around. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, a lot of window lickers, and I don't think that that we're necessarily as humans always capable or willing to have those conversations or whatever else. And I think it makes having some controls there why it's so the pull of the religious dynamic or the system of belief thing so powerful, right?
Yep.
Because I know for me, I don't always trust my motivations in things, right? That I don't know I'm so purely motivated as to, well, let's communicate this out. Sometimes I want to do what I want to do. And while that's good for me, it doesn't necessarily plan out.
Ideas off of other people.
Exactly.
We don't exist in a vacuum. You know, we do have to at times, you know, if you are working for a company, so you're now under Steve's, you know, umbrella. There are some things that you will have to consult with him on. And that is okay. He is there to provide that guidance for you.
Right.
Especially under his network. And that's okay. You know,
and that's the siphoning process, though, right?
You the might of doing whatever the hell you want to do.
Right.
But it's that process to help you grow and develop.
Exactly.
And now you're on, but it'll be up to you to make it what it is.
And to my point is that I also don't think that everybody who comes to Steve with a great idea for a show gets to put the headphones on.
They do not.
You know what I'm saying? So there's
they do not.
and I would surmise that the group of people who doesn't get a show or doesn't have the opportunity to represent what you've started,
this
your
network
vision, is probably significantly higher than the people that actually
are here.
That are here.
Oh, no question.
Right?
No
so
question.
if we macro that out to our fellow human beings,
Right.
the amount of people that I think are really going to walk out what you may have been doing, right, I think is so small,
Right.
in comparison.
Oh, sure.
Doesn't invalidate anything, and I don't mean it that way. But at the same time, that presents bigger elements of like, well, if we give everything mentally that leeway, where is the point of saying freedom of expression versus anarchy that leads to, there's still things that can comprise a society that is synchronicity of thought.
Absolutely.
Right? We hold these views to be blah 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 blah. If everybody's too many cooks in the kitchen, some of the exploration for me has been, well, how much of that is because it plays well? These ideals fit nice in the sandbox with more people, even if they don't believe the exact same thing as me. Right? So, oh man, I appreciate. I'm trying not to get too excited. I'm trying to keep it contained, but I love this. I absolutely love hearing
different points of view.
Because it's a lot to go unpack. Go and unpack. Well,
listen, I've always enjoyed our conversation, Mandisa and I's conversation. She's only been on the show one time, but again, the conversation was extremely good. And again, at some point she'll be back on, and maybe she can come on your show. I mean, I don't know. The good thing about it,
that would be. Hey,
did we just become friends?
From Atlanta.
Okay.
I need to come back.
All right.
I agree. Listen, Mandisa, I'm gonna have to let you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Man,
Thank you so much for this. I always appreciate and love our conversations. But I'll be in touch with you.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. And
nice to meet you.
It was so nice meeting you.
Same to
I
you.
look forward to keeping in touch with y'all both.
Okay. Sounds good.
See ya.
All right. Y'all have a good one.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh man, Steve, you didn't tell me you're gonna have gifts and presents and cool stuff to happen on the intro show, man.
That's how I do stuff. Was that?
Welcome to the network, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to the network. That's
Hello,
right.
world.
Yeah. Was that decent or what?
Oh man, I can see how time can get away with you real quick.
There you go.
Real quick.
Yeah.
But It's crazy. It's crazy to me, right? In the sense of like, it's such a different side of things to consider.
Yeah.
Right. Well, am I constrained from some level of freedom?
Right.
Because of whatever else. But there's also certain freedom that is it harmful, right? Like you can't give a 3-year-old the car keys.
No, right. Of course.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
is there where are those lines and how do they form and hold for different people?
Right.
And they're obviously not, unchangeable boundaries.
Yeah.
Because to her point, if you showed me some solid evidence, then I'd have to consider it.
Right.
But I mean,
otherwise, forget about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember thinking of spirituality as being like the conveyor belt at the airport, right? If nobody's been on the other side of those little flaps, and the flaps being death or after what happened,
right.
you don't know.
No.
Is there actually a world where all suitcases have a great time, or they just kind of
just believe that there's not?
Right. Yeah. So, good stuff, man.
And again, listen, let me just say this, and for everybody who's watching, I appreciate you guys watching. That's the like one of the main purposes of this network, so that we can talk about things that are different.
Yeah.
I am not here to bring people on to talk about the normal, regular shit. Ain't gonna happen. Even when it comes right down to religion, I've been trying to find somebody so that we can talk about religion in a very different way, and we'll eventually get to that. But again, this show tonight was about introducing and announcing your show. Frankly speaking. Listen, dude. I think your interaction with your guests is going to be phenomenal. I think that people are gonna get a very different perspective when they watch each and every one of your shows, which is the purpose of it. Yeah. We're not selling freaking snake oil. Yeah. Not right now. Maybe later.
I mean, if it pays.
If it works, then yeah, sell it. But if it works. It's. I want people to know that this is not a joke to me.
Well, that's been very clear from first couple conversations.
Yeah, this is not a joke, and I'm hoping that I'll give it 6 months, I guess, that we're operating 24/7 with a news department, with a documentary films department, with maybe sports. I don't know yet. We'll see how it goes. But my point is,
sure.
This is all we're putting all of these things together so that we can give these points of view from a person of color's perspective.
Yeah.
We have shit to talk about. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. It's not just about what's on ABC or NBC or MSNBC or it's not all of it. Don't get me wrong. I think they do whatever they have to do, and I think they do a good job with it. Yeah. That's just them. Here, these podcast shows can go from half hour to 3 hours. There's no time limit.
Yeah.
And we are in the mode, but we're in the development phase of developing these shows that are only 30 minutes. And we're going to do that on purpose, and some other things we're going to talk about too. But again, we're talking about we're talking about your show. And listen, it's already been an hour.
It's crazy. Flew by. Time flies when you're having fun picking someone else's brains.
Man, listen, Mandisa is amazing, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Mandisa is not somebody who just said, fuck it, I'm just not going to believe in shit anymore.
Right.
And this is my life. Okay, what can you tell me about it? Nothing. I just don't believe in nothing. No, she can give you all of her information, her stats, her beliefs, her
Well, it gives you the credibility, right? I mean, I remember having like youth pastors that didn't grow up lily white.
Right.
I tended to listen to what you had to say a little bit more because if you just part of the family business for your whole life, well, Now, there's a part of me that respects the fact that you haven't maybe run into as many brick walls head along that led you to where you stand now.
Yeah,
you
for sure. Of course.
A little less scarring going on, but given that it wasn't my case, being like that, right? That you want to. Hear how people have arrived at where they're at.
Let me ask you this. After that conversation, how do you feel now about your show?
I'm so excited. I kind of want to spin the computer back around.
You want to go. You want to continue.
And I think that's the whole thing, too, is like you talk about, as you go, abilities, your skill set with the podcast,
would
with
think so.
interviewing grows, right?
Yes,
And that
yes,
learning your audience. I know there's some questions, even when I was on the Deluxe podcast, right, where you could feel like that little twin propeller plane has got an engine that's kind of smoking right now. You don't want to, you don't want to lose the conversation. But at the same time, like, you ask, case in point, you ask somebody about their kids.
Right.
We've moved past the conceptual to home, and that can be sticky, right?
Yep.
And kudos to her for being so gracious with her answers and everything like
Mandisa
that.
brought it, man. Yeah.
That's like, okay, so this is how it really plays for somebody, because there's the hypothetical dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, how's it look on in your daily situation?
Yep.
So, man, very grateful for someone who will jump right in there with the answers, and we hope that's a trend that continues with Frankly Speaking.
It's going to continue. It's going to continue. You will want to find people that you can have these amazing conversations with. And don't get me wrong, every once in a while you'll have somebody on, and you're talking to yourself like, why the fuck did I ask them to come on
I
here?
got a Walt Disney that's freezing on me.
Yeah, it's like, shit. Okay. So listen, now on the next show we're gonna have, but I'm almost guaranteed that you're gonna bring on some amazing guests on your show. Timon, it's your comment about basically me being the gatekeeper, which I mean it's my. I don't want to say it's my shit, but it is. There's a lot of people that want to come on, and I do vet the crap out of anybody who really wants to do it, because you got to show me that you can hold your own if you have to do a show by yourself.
Oh, I felt that real quick on that conversation we had on the phone with the excellence question, black excellence question.
Right.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Had a little extra no perspirant on for that one.
Yeah.
But that, to your point, like, that was the kind of stuff that I was like, oh, this is some serious.
Yeah.
This is serious focus on this thing.
Yeah. And listen, I love the expression black excellence because I think now I'm not sure how long, maybe a couple of years or so, I've felt the building of this excellence thing going on, and I feel the same thing for black women. I don't know what it is I feel, but it's almost like there's women are being or rising up. Things are getting better, and I think it's more so about us knowing and believing who we are. It's listen, for so many years we were even taught to kind of bow to certain situations, certain people. And in my adult years, after 40, 45 maybe, I just started saying, screw that. I'm not bowing to shit.
Yeah.
And because the longer you bow, the longer you're going to stay down there. I don't feel like staying down there to nobody for nobody. And this network work is here so that we can talk about the things that we're doing across the board. I don't mean just in IT or just in whatever the heck it is, but across the board. And that's why I wanted to have so many different hosts or so many different podcast shows and so many different programming. It's really all about us building, developing, and dispersing our own content. There's so many.
Dude, let it out, man.
Dude, there's so many stories out there. So many stories out there. And listen, this takes nothing away from anybody who is not a person of color.
Sure.
Takes nothing away. But you have to understand, when you really begin to recognize who you are, where you came from, and where you can go with it, I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
You can do anything that you want to do. And of course, I was told that since day one. You can do whatever you want to do. Okay, but as you
up against something.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And that is the kind of stuff that, like, I thought, the initial, frankly speaking, aspects had a real tint toward being a biracial person, and then through that lens viewing a lot of different things, right? But I thought that at some point becomes I mean, I am who I am.
Sure.
And my mom used to say, you're an inquiring mind that needs to know. That doesn't necessarily have to do everything with my racial makeup.
Right.
I want to hear. I like stories.
Sure.
I want to know what somebody has to say. So, I mean, to have that and then have an environment that is specifically designed for that storytelling exchange of
Absolutely.
I don't know that's if I'd been doing this with my laptop and my own, Amazon Fisher Price, my first podcast kit, you could probably have the same thing, but not with the same impact.
Right.
For lack of a better term,
Right.
So,
All right. Well, brother, listen, all I can tell you is you're here. This is your home. This is where you can be as dynamic as you want to be. This is where you can bring people on and talk about stories. This is it. This is it.
yeah.
So I'm glad that you're here, and I think you're gonna do great, and I think you're gonna make a huge impact.
Well, once again, incredibly appreciative of the opportunity. Man.
Yeah.
Just to make it through the gate.
To make it through the gate. Well, you had some help.
I did.
Yeah.
Do Lux Podcast. Love you guys.
Yeah. You had some help. You did. But anyway, listen, what's up? Oh, talk about tomorrow. You have any last words you want to impart?
No, I'm excited about the things to come.
Yeah. So am I.
There's always the aspect. I remember getting recruited.
Yeah.
That was fun, right?
Yeah.
Shoot, welcome to the network. Welcome to the network. We're so excited. You're gonna make an impact. Yeah, I gotta have something to present, right?
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that, and I'm really hopeful that the audience will tune in and listen with the same the ability to hear things in the spirit intended.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And then just go from there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Simon, thank you.
Thank you.
Tomorrow, we're going to have a show, and it's going to be dedicated to talking about every single show that we have on this network. So that we can explain all of the shows. And I got to tell you, just by looking at this, this is a little emotional, because this started in November.
So at what point was it just this, you didn't have that many names up there?
No, I think
This is growth right there, man.
I think Unapologetically Black was in July. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 now, 6 additional.
It's a quick turnaround.
It's yeah. Here's my thought process. I have the network, and I think actually before that, when I still have the other business, but I would kind of delay in decision making for whatever reason. I'm like, it's not the right time. Who the fuck am I? I'm saying it's not the right time, really. So now with Square, and this tells me that I've taken complete ownership of it. It's mine. It is something that I can take and mold and shape and do the things that I want to with it, and it's going to have an impact on everybody who's watching.
Yeah.
So instead of delaying this time, every time I came up with what I thought was a good idea, I'm like, let's make that shit happen.
Yeah, go with it.
Boom, let's make that shit happen. Boom, let's make that one happen too. Well, but again, here's a caveat. I said every time I thought it was a good idea.
Operative words.
Right. But you know something, I think when you fail enough, I think and listen, failure is really a part of growth.
My sister says fail forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to fail. I put up quotes and things from time to time, and one of those talks about quotes, and I say something like, don't fear failure, your life depends on it, or something like that. But because of my shit, my vast failures. Now that I have this, I can unequivocally say that when I come up with an idea, that is a good idea, or that's a good idea. Even right down to this new one called Crafted. You know, the idea that somebody can come on a live show and showcase their product or services or whatever it is that they're making. I can't say no one's done that, but at least this show is dedicated and made for people of color. We have a ton of things out there, man, that we're making.
What was the number you were talking about for the black business dynamic? Several thousand within.
That was BBOC, Black Business Owners of Charlotte. That was 25,000. Yeah, they have 25,000 membership. And Cathay was on the show last night. He and I told him about it before he came on the show. And he said, "Dude," I think he said, "brilliant," or something like that. I'm like, "Hey, thank you, appreciate it."
Sure.
But again, it's almost like a home shopping network, but you're able to come on and showcase the products and things that you're making.
Yeah.
And so, what this is what happens many times. We're doing this, but we're going out to swap meets. We're going out to flea markets. We're going out to here. You're gonna be in front of thousands of people. That's pretty freaking good.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know who Gary Vee is, Gary
Yeah.
Vaynerchuk, and you're talking about like the internet is giving people a chance.
Yeah, that's the truth. He's absolutely right.
mean,
Absolutely
if you've got
right.
that kind of, we can take the the flea market to YouTube.
Yeah.
Take it to Facebook Live. Take it to, live and direct.
That is true. That is true. But we're working on it, trying to launch this about maybe 2 weeks before Black Friday.
Okay.
That's the goal right now. But it's so funny because he and I talked about it last night, and when I got up this morning, there were already people asking about it. I'm like, thank you, yes.
Validation.
Yeah, Channel 13. We're going to talk about all this stuff tomorrow, guys.
Awesome.
But what's the next one? Oh, just Square Media. That's the network. Timon, thank you. Brother, I appreciate you. Glad that you're here. In fact, let me put that one back. I like that one. There we go.
It feels official, man. It just, I want to print this off, take it home. Let
You
my
want
parents
me to send
put-
you that graphic?
Yeah, let me give it to my parents to put up on the refrigerator like a good report card.
Like a good report card.
Give me an attaboy in the training.
Oh
log.
my God! Yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, man! Yeah. Listen, dude. I just wanted to make sure that every time we have a show, that it looks the way that it should look. Here's this professionally designed logo that goes right along with how you're going to perform on your show. It's a win-win for me.
It's yeah. Unless you got another guest, man, I don't know what to do. My head's about to blow off.
Absolutely nothing. Hey, folks, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. My man Chief is going to go ahead and roll us out and build up some music as we kind of go out here. But thank you very, very much. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. So have a good night.